sound ready, we welcome you really warmly to Finchley Progressive Synagogue and to mark and celebrate Maia's bat mitzvah, delayed as it has been for a year, so it only increases the joy. I'm going to ask you to stand as we begin our service with Ma Tovu. I'm going to just give you a couple of little bit, no, please stand, I can talk while you stand. Give you a couple of little bits of stage management and requests. I do recognise that delay invited you all to chat more and not observe the social distancing that we are asking people to do in the synagogue. So you are in your seats. There is a kiddush box for the end of the service underneath your seats, and then our welcomer warden will usher you out where you can embrace each other and talk to each other with great joy and celebration at the end of the service outside in the car park. You are absolutely invited to sing, but to keep your masks on if you are able, unless you're exempt. But we are so happy to have you with us. I see that we don't have a clear aisle as we normally have for our bat mitzvah to walk through, but I think her and John, her teacher, will manage. We begin the service with Ma Tovu, which is our song, words from the prophet Bilam, turning every space that we have, our synagogue, for those of you at home, into your home, to make it a sanctuary as we all create a community here and elsewhere, whoever is streaming, for us this Shabbat.
Ma Tovu, Ma Tovu, Alecha Yaakov, Mishkelotecha Yisrael. Ma Tovu, Ma Tovu, Alecha Yaakov, Mishkelotecha Yisrael. Bani berov chesdecha, Avometecha, Eshtovcha ve'lecha l'kodshecha, ve'yiraktecha. Ma Tovu, Ma Tovu, Alecha Yaakov, Mishkelotecha Yisrael. Adonai ahavti, ve'ometecha, u'mekom mishkan kevodecha, mishkan kvodecha. Vani eshtachavet, ve'efrat, evracha lifnei Adonai, osi. Ma Tovu, Ma Tovu, Alecha Yaakov, Mishkelotecha Yisrael. Vani tefilati lecha, Adonai et ratzon, Elohim berov chesdecha, Elohim berov chesdecha, Aneni be'emet yishecha. Ma Tovu, Ma Tovu, Alecha Yaakov, Mishkelotecha Yisrael. Mishkelotecha Yisrael.
Let's sit down. Sherry, you want to come up here, ready?
hearts are fruitful and multiply. Say the words of Torah are fruitful and multiply.
A wise person once said, "The wise build bridges while the foolish build barriers. We must find a way to look after one another as if we were one single tribe." An important and relevant theme for Maia, who has always been a bridge builder. It was said by T'Challa, the Black Panther of the Marvel Universe fame. One of Maia's great passions are the creations of a group of inspired and talented first-generation Jewish immigrants in New York. In the late 30s and 40s, they found expression for their fears around the rise of fascism by creating a world in which good can always triumph over evil. These sometimes flawed and always rounded heroes often form a blueprint of how we could always lead our lives. And many lessons can be learnt, such as standing up for what you believe in, that the past doesn't dictate the future. After all, Natasha, the Black Widow, was an assassin for the KGB, and Ant-Man was a convicted burglar. A thread that features all over the Marvel multi-universe is that love, any kind of love, fraternal, maternal, romantic, is all-powerful. Love and acceptance for oneself is vital part of all that. Thor's mum said the following: "Everyone fails at who they're supposed to be, Thor. The measure of a person, of the hero, is how well they succeed at being who they are."
Thank you. That reminder of love. We are on the foot of page 5.
Yama my 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 my, yama my 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 my, yama my 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 my, yama my 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 my, yama my 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 my, yama my 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 my, yama my 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 my, yama my 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 my, yama my 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 my, yama my 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 my, yama my 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 my. ישמחו השמיים ותגל הארץ ירם הים וללא ישמחו השמיים ותגל הארץ ירם הים Yama my 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 my, yama my 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 my, yama my 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 my, yama my 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 my, yama my 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 my, yama my 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 my, yama my 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 my, yama my 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 my, yama my 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 my, yama my 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 my, yama my 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 my.
Page 6, Anim Zamirot Vashirim Erog, Ki Elecha Nafshi Ta'arog.
Anim Zamirot Vashirim Erog, Ki Elecha Nafshi Ta'arog, Nafshi Chimda Betzel Yadecha Ladat Moratzotecha, Mi Dabri Bichvodecha, Omer Libi El Dodecha, Yerav Nasiki Alecha, Ki Nafshi Ta'arog Elecha.
Let's stand for the Yishtabach, the Baruch Hu, our public call to prayer, having welcomed each other.
ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו, האל המלך הגדול והקדוש בשמיים ובארץ. כי לך נאה אדוני אלוהינו, ואלוהי אבותינו, שיר ושבחה, הלל וזמרה, ברכות והודאות, מעתה ועד עולם. Baruch atah Adonai, habocher b'shirei zimra. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. Baruch Hu et Adonai
Baruch atah Adonai, Yotzeh Hamorot. And the second blessing before the Shema, the one that calls on love, that Shira invited us to think about during this service. Great is your love for us, eternal God, and abundant your compassion. Our ancestors trusted in you, and you taught them the laws of life. So be gracious to us and teach us. Incline our hearts to hear your words, to know and understand, to learn and teach, and with love to uphold the truths of your Torah. Enlighten us with your teaching. Make us faithful to your commandments and wholehearted in the love and awe of your name. For in love you summon us to serve you and proclaim your unity. We praise you, O God, in love. You have called your people Israel to serve you. I'm going to ask you to remain standing for the Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Le'olam Va'ed.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך.
למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Please be seated. True and beautiful and good, sound, established and enduring are these words, now and forever. True it is, Eternal One, that you are sovereign God and Redeemer, as you were the God and Redeemer of our ancestors. You are our Maker, the rock of our salvation. We have known you always as our helper and our liberator. There is no God but you. Truly you are first and you are last. We have no Redeemer but you. You have redeemed us from Egypt and freed us from the house of bondage. Then, with great joy, Moses, Miriam, and all Israel sang to you this song.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף פלא.
שירה חדשה, שיבחו גאולים, לשמך על שפת הים. יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו.
אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. צור ישראל, קומה בעזרת ישראל. גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו. גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו. קדוש ישראל, ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל.
Please stand.
Anananananana Adonai. Ananananana Svatai Tiftah. Ananananana Ufi Agid. Ufi Agid Tehilatecha. Ananananana Adonai. Ananananana Svatai Tiftah. Ananananana Ufi Agid. Ufi Agid Tehilatecha. Ananananana Adonai. Ananananana Svatai Tiftah. Ananananana Ufi Agid. Ufi Agid Tehilatecha. Ananananana Adonai. Ananananana Svatai Tiftah. Ananananana Ufi Agid. Ufi Agid Tehilatecha.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Velohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Velohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagivor Vahanara, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Vekonei Hakol, Vezocher Chasdei Avot Ve'imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshiach Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Ve'Isra Sarah. Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayei Meitim Atah Rav Lehoshia, Mashiv Haruach U'Marid HaGeshen, Mazriach HaShemesh U'Marid HaTal.
Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed, Mechayei Meitim Barachamim Rabim, Somek Noflim Vrofeh Cholim Umatir Asurim Umakayem Emunato Mishenei Afar Mi Chamocha Bal Gevorot Mi Domela Melech Meimit U'Machaye U'Matzmiach Yeshua.
V'ne'eman atah lachayot meitim, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayei hemeitim. Nekadesh et shimcha ba'olam, Keshem shemakdishim oto bishmei maron, Kakatuv al yad neviecha.
Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzvaot, Melech Kol Haaretz Kevodo.
Kevodo malei olam.
Baruch Kevod Adonai Mimekomo.
Mimkomcha malkeinu tofia, v'timloch aleinu, ki mechakim anachnu lach.
Loch Adonai leolam, Elohai Zion, Vador, Hallelujah. Dovador, Dovador, Nagid Kod Lecha, Ulenetzach Netzachim, Ulenetzach Netzachim, Kedushatcha Nagdish, Dovador, Dovador, Nagid Kod Lecha, Ulenetzach Netzachim, Ulenetzach Netzachim, Kedushatcha Nagdish, V'shivchacha Eloheinu, Mipinu lo yamush leolam va'ed, Ki el melech gadol, Ki el melech gadol, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ledovador, Nagid God Lecha, Ulenetzach Netzachim, Ulenetzach Netzachim, Kedushatcha Nagdish.
Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh. Please be seated.
Yismachu b'malachutacha, Shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'korei oneg Shabbat. Yismachu b'malachutacha, Shomrei, Shomre, Shabbat, V'Koreh, Oneg Shabbat. Mekadosh Shvi Shabbat. Kulam Yisbu, V'yitamdu min Tuvecha Shabbat. Yismachu b'malachutacha. Shomre, Shabbat, V'Koreh, Oneg Shabbat. Yismachu b'malachutacha. Shomre, Shabbat, V'Koreh, Oneg Shabbat. V'hashvi'i ratita bo v'kidashno Shabbat. Kendat yamim, oto karata Shabbat. Yismachu b'malachutacha. Shomre, Shabbat, V'Koreh, Oneg Shabbat. Yismachu b'malachutacha. Shomre, Shabbat, V'Koreh, Oneg Shabbat. Zecher l'maseh b'Reshit Shabbat. Zecher l'maseh b'Reshit Shabbat. Yismachu b'malachutacha. Shomre, Shabbat, V'Koreh, Oneg Shabbat. Yismachu b'malachutacha. Shomre, Shabbat, V'Koreh, Oneg Shabbat.
Our God and God of our ancestors, may our rest on this day be pleasing in your sight. Sanctify us by your commandments and make us loyal to your teaching. Satisfy us with your goodness, gladden us with your salvation, and purify our hearts to serve you in truth. In your gracious love, Eternal One, let the holiness of your Sabbath enter our hearts, and may all Israel, who hallow your name, be exalted by its peace. We praise you, O God, for the holiness of the Sabbath. Eternal God, be gracious to your people Israel, and in your love always accept their prayers. May our worship now and always be acceptable in your sight. We praise you, O God, whom alone we worship in reverence. Modim anachnu lach, she'ata hu Adonai Eloheinu, v'Elohei avotenu leolam va'ed. Tzur chayenu, magen yishenu, ata hu ledor vador. Nodeh lecha unesaper tehilatecha, al chayenu hamizurim beyadecha, ve'al nishmotenu hapekudot la, ve'al nisecha shebechol yom imanu, ve'al nifleotecha v'tovotecha, shebechol et erev avoker v'tzosorayim. Baruch ata Adonai, Hatov Shimcha Ulecha Na'el Lehodot.
Sim Shalom. Tova uvracha. Sim Shalom. Tova uvracha. Sim Shalom. Shalom. Tova uvracha. Sim shalom. Tova uvracha. Aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Amecha. Sim shalom.
Baruch atah Adonai, oseh hashalom. There's a silent prayer.
Hirevi Ve'egyon livi Lefanecha Adonai Tzuri Ve'goali Adonai Ose shalom bimroma, Uyase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol bnei Adam. Ose shalom bimroma, Uyase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol bnei Ya'aseh shalom, Ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, Ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, Ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, Ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
So we turn our Kriyat Torah. Some of you might be forgiven for thinking that you can go home now. Our Bat Mitzvah has done so much already leading the service. But we now reach the heart of our Shabbat morning service, where we open the ark and bring out the Torah scroll for Maia to chant from, illuminate the words and translate them as well. We're on page 20, and I invite you to stand as Maia's honoured grandfathers are standing ready to open the ark. Assemble the people, the men and the women, the little ones and the stranger that is within your gates, that they may hear and that they may learn and revere the eternal God and observe and do all the words of the Lord.
Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, ki mitzion tetzei Torah, u'davar Adonai mirushalayim.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
Gadlul Adonai iti onoramama shemo yachdav.
Leka Adonai Hagedula, Gavura v'Tiferet, v'Hanitzach v'Hagor. Kol b'shamayim u'ba'aretz, Leka Adonai Hamalachah, v'Hamitnaseh l'kol rosh.
Let me invite you to sit. Grandfathers, you can go back to your seat so you get to see Maia as she reads. So I am delighted to be able to, on this auspicious date, a year later for Maia, to call her up to her bat mitzvah, to an aliyah l'Torah. Ta'amod ha bat mitzvah, Maia bat Daniel v'Shoshana, likrat ha Torah. So Maia, let's get you up.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you for coming, those here at FPS and those zooming in. Postponing my bat mitzvah has meant that I can have more of my family and friends around me, although it's sad that not everyone can be here in person. I'm really pleased to be with you all today in my synagogue on the Shabbat before Rosh Hashanah. My portion, Nitzavim, means you are standing here. It comes from the final book of the Torah, Deuteronomy, and has Moses going over what the people have experienced and a resealing of the covenant. Moses lists all the people included in the community and mentions women, children, newcomers, and those who did the manual labor. It's obvious that times have changed since Exodus, when the commandments and covenant were first given at Sinai, because then Moses directed all the instructions only to the men. There is a very shocking verse in Exodus where Moses said to the men, "Do not go near a woman." This proves sexism was alive and real, as he only talked to the male half of the community. It's interesting and confusing to see that after years of being discriminated against by the Egyptians, they still don't treat everyone in their community as equal. But here in Deuteronomy, we can see how times have changed and how they have progressed to include women being named as part of the community. Seeing this change in the way the Torah is written, from the first book to the last, means a lot to me as a Jew and as a woman. It isn't much, and there is still much more that can be improved, but it's one of the first steps towards equality in the Torah that we can see. Obviously, the patriarchy in Judaism continued to be very common, and it is only in the last few hundred years, when both Reform and Progressive Judaism started to gain popularity, that women have had a bigger part in their communities. At one time, and currently in some synagogues, women sit separately from the men, hidden behind a screen. Today, in this synagogue, we all sit together as equals. Traditionally, men would wear a kippah and tali, and women would not. Today I'm wearing my great-grandfather's tali, which passed down to my parents, who are married beneath it, and now I stand under it to be bat mitzvahed. My family has had a conflicted relationship with Judaism. Two of my grandparents were hidden children during the Holocaust, and many of my family were murdered in Belgium, France, and Poland. They were subject to the terrible consequences of discrimination. My parents chose Finchley Progressive Synagogue because they felt it fitted well with our family's values and emphasised what they felt was the most invaluable part of the Jewish tradition. I think they wanted to give me and Shira a positive experience of our Jewishness and a sense of community and belonging. Maybe the Jewish experience of persecution has led to there being a strong tradition of fighting for social justice in Jewish communities, as well as the fact that tikkun olam, the concept of repairing the world, and tzedakah, the moral obligation to give to charity, are fundamental beliefs in Judaism. My family on both sides have had a strong tradition of social action. Both my parents made sure we had a good understanding of world affairs and took us to demonstrations from a young age. I look to my grandparents, who have all been active throughout their lives in trying to change the world and making it more equal and kind. This has been through political activism, charity work, campaigning, or working with people with mental or physical health needs. Before them, great-grandparents who were trade unionists or volunteered with the League of Jewish Women. I take a lot from those examples. FPS feels like a safe and comfortable environment in which to explore my identity. It is a good mix of Jewish religion and Jewish culture. I don't believe in God or that the Torah is completely factual, but I have always felt able to be open about that here and have never felt judged or disapproved of as a result. To me, the Torah makes for an important story, something that ties us all together, to guide us. Like in Aesop's fable, we can learn from the stories about how to live, and the centuries that we have been sharing and reading them strengthens our identity. My tzedakah project is for a charity called Play for Progress. They use music, the arts, and creative therapies to support young, unaccompanied refugees and asylum seekers. So far, I have raised £450 by doing face painting and festival tattoos at local community events. I chose Play for Progress because the number of innocent people forced from their homes and into danger and uncertainty breaks my heart. There have been over 40 wars or conflicts across the world in 2020 and 2021 alone. I feel angry and disgusted when I watch our current government making it more difficult for those in need to find sanctuary here. However, it is amazing to see how local communities rally round to collect vital resources for newly arrived refugees, especially recently from Afghanistan. Having two grandparents who were forced into hiding at a young age just for existing as Jews, it feels particularly important for me to be able to stand up here, publicly acknowledging my heritage and my Jewishness. I'm still finding out what that means to me, but it includes a sense of social awareness, a set of strong values, and an understanding of the importance of a big, inclusive community. In our community, B'nai Mitzvah read our portions from one of the Czech scrolls. These were rescued from former Czechoslovakia, now Czech Republic, and brought to England by a man who'd purchased them. They were removed from their communities during the Holocaust and stored in a warehouse until the day they were found and brought to London, where a museum was created to store them. Now, many synagogues around Britain have 1 or 2 of the scrolls on loan in their communities. FPS is lucky enough to have 3. I'd just like to end by taking a moment to remember my Bubba, my grandma, Rachel, who passed away 3 years ago. She was a warm, loving, and passionate woman, and she is deeply missed by all of us.
So I invite you now to follow in our beautiful little Torah scrolls made especially for Maia's Bat Mitzvah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Do you want to use the book for Torah blessing or not?
Yeah.
Take your yad. Take a deep breath.
Do I know what to do?
Yeah, you're going to do the blessing. You're going to have your yad ready. There you are. So hold on. Let's exactly. Fine. I'm going to swap now with John. You ready? Where is it? Oh, is it? Have you found it?
Yeah, it keeps falling.
Okay. So John will come here. Can you hold it there? Yeah? Okay.
Barehu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bahar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah. Atem nitzavim hayom kulchem lifnei Adonai Elohehem Rashehem shivatehem ziknehem v'shotrehem kol ish Yisrael Taphem neshehem begerecha asher bekerev mahaneha Mehotev et seha ad shoev meimecha leavrecha biverit Adonai Elohecha uve'alato asher Adonai Elohecha koret imcha hayom leman hakim otcha hayom lo le'am vehu yihi lecha le'elohim kasher diber la v'cha'asher nishba lavotecha le'avraham le'yitzhak u'le'yaakov ve'lo idchem levatem anohi koret et habrit hazot ואת העלה הזאת, כי את אשר ישנו פה עמנו עומד היום לפני אדוני אלוהינו, ואת אשר איננו פה עמנו היום. כי אתם ידעתם את אשר ישבנו בארץ מצרים, ואת אשר עברנו בקרב הגויים אשר עברתם, ותראו את שיקוציהם ואת גילוליהם, את באבן, כסף וזהב אשר עמהם. פן יש בהם איש או אישה, או משפחה או שבט, אשר לבבו פונה היום מעם אדוני אלוהינו ללכת לעבוד את אלוהי הגויים ההם. פן יש בהם שורש פורי ראש ולענה, והיה בשומעו את דברי העלה הזאת, והתברך בלבבו לאמור, שלום יהיה לי, כי בשרירות ליבי אלך, למען שפות הרבה את הצמאה. לא יובא אדוני סלוח לו, כי אז ישן אף אדוני וקנאתו באיש ההוא, ורצה בו כל העלה הכתובה בספר הזה, ומחה אדוני את שמו מתחת השמיים. והבדילו אדוני לרע מכל שבטי ישראל, ככל עלות הברית הכתובה בספר התורה הזה. ואמר הדור האחרון ביניהם אשר יקומו מאחריכם, והנוכרי אשר יבוא מארץ רחוקה, וראו את מכות הארץ ההיא ותהלואיך אשר חילה אדוני בה. So it's over. גופרית פמלה שרפה חולצה, לא תזרע ולא תצניע, ולא יעלה בה כל עשב, קמח פחת סדום ועמורה, אדמה וצבועים, אשר הפך אדוני באפו ובחמתו. ואמרו כל הגויים, על מה עשה אדוני קהל הארץ הזאת, מהורי האף הגדול הזה. ואמרו על אשר עזבו את ברית אדוני אלוהי אבותם, אשר קראתי עמם, בהוציאותם מארץ מצרים.
That's a first for us.
I'm going to read the translation now. You are all assembled here today before the eternal your God, your heads, your tribes, your elders and your chiefs, the whole nation of Israel, your little ones, your wives, and the stranger dwelling in your midst, from the lumberman to the person who draws water from your wells, for you to enter into and seal a pact with the Eternal by swearing allegiance this day, so that you become God's people and the Eternal becomes your God, as the Eternal has said, and as the Eternal swore to your ancestors, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. And not with you alone do I seal this covenant and this oath on behalf of the Eternal, but with those who are here today before the Eternal our God, as well as with those who are not with us this day. For you yourselves know how things were when we lived in the land of Egypt, and when we passed through other nations, where you saw their disgusting idols made of wood and stone, silver and gold. If there is anybody among you, or any clan or tribe, whose heart turns away from the Eternal our God to go and worship the gods of those nations, if there are any among you that are bearing fruit of hemlock and wormwood, this is a metaphor because both hemlock and wormwood are poisons, so they'd be like a cancer and spread through the community. It shall be when they hear the words of this oath and think themselves blessed in their hearts, saying, things will be okay, even though I'm going my own way, in order to sweep away the moist with the parched. no one really knows what the meaning of that what that means. The Eternal will not want to forgive them, and the Eternal will be furious and jealous, and all the sanctions written in this book shall come down upon them, and the Eternal shall wipe them out. And the Eternal shall isolate them from all the tribes of Israel on account of their wickedness, according to the oaths of the covenant written in this book of teaching. And later generations, your children, and any stranger who comes from a distant land, will see the blows against this land and the ills in which the Eternal inflicts upon it. Brimstone and salt, the land is burning, nothing can be sown or grown on it, just like Sodom and Gomorrah, Admah and Zeboim, which the Eternal destroyed in anger. All of them will say, why has the Eternal done this to the land? Why the sudden fury? And they will say, because they abandoned God's covenant, God of their ancestors, the covenant which the Eternal sealed with them when the Eternal brought them out the land of Egypt. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'hayei olam nata betochenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Hop off. So I'm going to ask everyone to stand as we raise the scroll, and Maia gets to point out the extraordinary long piece that she read from, and so well.
Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah. Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah. Le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato.
My Haftarah is from the prophet Jeremiah. It was chosen as just before Rosh Hashanah, we need a positive message. Jeremiah worked with the Israelite people as the first temple was destroyed, trying to help them to be better and settle back into a good relationship with God. He is hopeful for them as they go into exile to Babylon. He reminds them that from now on, each person will be responsible for their own actions and not linked to their parents. And mistakes can be made, and there is always an opportunity to make good. And things will be okay. I will chant the piece, but you can follow with the English translation. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bacha b'nvi'im tovim v'radsa v'divrehem hane'emarim be'emet. Baruch Ata Adonai haboher b'Torah u'Moshe avdo u'Yisrael amo u'b'nvi'ei ha'emet v'tzedek. Here we go. Hine yamim ba'im ne'om Adonai ve'zarati et beit Yisrael ve'et beit Yehuda zera Adam ve'zera behema ve'haya ka'asher shakadati alehem lintosh ve'lintots ve'laharos u'laha'avid u'lahareya keneshkod alehem livnot ve'lintoa ne'um Adonai Bayamim hahem lo yomru od avot achlu voseh v'shinei vanim tikheina ki imish bayavono yamut kol ha'adam ha'ohel ha'boseh tikheina shinav Hine yamim ba'im ne'om Adonai v'charati et beit Yisrael ve'et beit Yehuda brit chadasha lo habrit asher karati et avotam beyom heheziki ve'adam L'hotziam me'eretz Mitzrayim asher hema heferu et briti ve'anochi ba'alti vam ne'um Adonai ki zot habrit asher achrot et beit Yisrael acharei hayamim hahem ne'um Adonai natati et torati b'kirvam ve'alibam achtavena ve'hayiti leham le'Elohim vehema yeli le'am ve'lo yelamedu od ish et rehu ve'ish et achiv lemor deu et Adonai ki hulam yadu oti lemiktanaham ve'al gedolam ne'um Adonai ki eslach le'avonam ulechatatam lo ezkorod ko amar Adonai noten shemesh le'oyomam hukot yareav v'kokavim le'or laila roga hayam ve'yehemu galav Adonai tzvaot shemo im yamushu hahukim ha'elech milefenai ne'um Adonai gam zera Yisrael yishbetu mihiyot goy lafanai kol hayamim.
Go straight into blessing.
Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, zu kol haolamim, tzadik bechol hadorot, ha'el ha'ne'eman, ha'omer ve'oseh, hamdaber u'mekayem, shekol devarav emet v'tzedek. Al ha'torah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al ha'nevi'im ve'al yom ha'shabbat hazeh shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu likdusha v'limnucha lehavodu letifaret al hakol Adonai Eloheinu anachnu modim lach umevarechim otach yitbarach shimcha befi kol hay tamid leolam va'ed baruch ata Adonai mekadesh HaShabbat.
So I think there is going to be, there was going to be a showering of sweetness, not to pick up, but to shower Maia with.
Oh, that's right.
So we're not picking up, but we are showering her. Oh my God! Okay, thank you. They are very soft, so no injuries were sustained. No stoning, as John rightly says, no stoning. So we're just going to leave them here for the moment, and at the end of the service we can deal. But Maia, you warranted a great deal of sweetness there. Thank you. I am going to ask us now, at this moment of great joy, to stand for the community blessing, which I think Grandpa and Step-Grandpa are going to be reading while Dan stands here with the scroll. You okay just to stand?
Eternal God, whose dominion embraces the universe, we ask your blessing for our sovereign lady, Queen Elizabeth, and all the royal family, for those who govern our country and all who influence the quality of its national life. Make them conscious of their responsibility and teach them to exercise it in accordance with your will. May we all help to fashion in this country a society that excels in freedom and justice, tolerance and compassion, so that it may be a force for righteousness and peace in the life of humanity.
Amen.
May we all find here community and friendship, renewal of purpose and hope, a deeper understanding of our heritage, and a sense of your abiding presence. Bless all congregations of the House of Israel throughout the world. Let those who live under oppressive rule soon be freed, and may we all unite to witness to your truth and to do your will. May the one who blessed our ancestors bless this holy community with all holy communities. May the Holy One grant blessing and success in all the work of their hands, and all Israel, their brothers and sisters. And let us say Amen.
Amen. You want to come forward and do the Israel? This one. That's what you're using in the book, not the one you had.
Eternal God, our rock and redeemer, grant blessing to the state of Israel, created to fulfill an age-old dream and to be a haven for the oppressed. Inspire its leaders and citizens with a faithfulness to the aims of its founders, to develop the land for the benefit of all its inhabitants, and to implement the prophetic ideals of liberty and justice. May they live in harmony with one another and in peace with their neighbors, and cause to come true once more the ancient vision that out of Zion shall go forth Torah and the word of God from Jerusalem.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much. Susanna, do you want to just move those? Just don't want any accidents. Yehalelu et Shem Adonai ki nizgav Shemo levado.
Hodu haaretz l'shamayim v'yarem keren le'amor tehila l'chol chasidav livnei Yisrael am karovo. Hallelujah, hallelujah.
So we can't miss the moment that this is, as Maia has said, the Shabbat before Rosh Hashanah. So we have to acknowledge that the new month will be starting on Monday night. Grant to each one of us a long life of peace, welfare and blessing, a life of prosperity and health, a life guided by conscience, unmarred by self-reproach or shame, a life exalted by love of Torah and reverence for the divine, a life in which the longings of our hearts may be fulfilled for good. Rosh Chodesh Tishri, Yeh b'Yom Sheni. The new month of Tishri will be on Monday night. May it be the will of the Holy One ever to be praised, that it bring for us and for the whole house of Israel life and peace, happiness and joy, deliverance and consolation, and let us say, Amen. So actually, Tishri starts on Monday night, which Monday is Yom Sheni, and goes into Yom Shlishi. So Rosh Hashanah, of course, will be Tuesday and Monday night. Yehalelu et Shem Adonai ki nizgav Shemo levado, which we sang already. I'm overexcited for you, Maia. I'm going to ask you to sit down for one moment. Because what we're going to do now, but I realise I'm making you all stand for quite a while, and Dan, I'm just going to ask you to sit for a moment, is we are going to go into the Bat Mitzvah prayer. So we're going to have a very joyful way to return our scroll to the ark. And as I invite Susanna and Shira, so we have all four of you up here on the bima for the Bat Mitzvah prayer. I just want to say what all of us are thinking, those of us in our congregation. Thank you so much for choosing us, for that initial conversation that I had with Susanna and Dan about choosing us as a congregation to bring their daughters and to mark what would be Maia's Bat Mitzvah first. And Shira, I think we're even at the stage where we're about to pick a date for you, Shira, to follow. It has been such a nourishing experience to have a family such as yours that want to improve and build upon the idea of community. And Maia, you captured it. I was so proud and delighted that you chose this portion, and then were ready to delay it by a whole year to have Nitzavim a year later. This portion is wonderful in its call to us of what it means to be Jewish and what it means to be in community. Maia read those opening words, Atem Nitzavim. All it is all of you who are standing here, from each person, no matter how small or insignificant or how new you are to the community. Whoever you are is crucial and critical to the community. Maia, you talked about a large community being important. And then just after your extraordinary long portion, which I think we all agree, and John and I most of all, what a portion you took on. But right after your portion is these words that some commentators, Maimonides, even Rashi, wondered, could they mean this being about teshuvah, about repentance before Rosh Hashanah? Or could it be more about that this is what it means to be Jewish? That this thing of being Jewish, this mitzvah, the whole possibly of Deuteronomy, of all the Torah, what is this thing? It is not too far away from you that you have to ask anyone to do it for you. It is not in heaven, it is not across the sea. It is something that is manageable and near to you to do at all times. Maia and Susanna before always shared with me the ambivalence, the complication of being Jewish, of standing up to be counted, particularly in a family that has seen and has borne such tragedy and such suffering. And earlier this year, Susanna, you and your father Sasha shared that conversation that marked and was shared across Britain and the world now for Holocaust Memorial Day. It was so significant for us to be part of that Yom HaShoah and to see you as a family doing that. And I think you reminded us, Maia, this morning that it does not have to be difficult for us. We have to find the right way, whether it is Jewish culture, Jewish religion, but Jewish community is what calls us to be here. And you have given us the most blessed of gifts just before Rosh Hashanah. So I am now going to ask us all ready to stand for the Bat Mitzvah prayer on page 26 as we mark this family celebrating their daughter. So I'm going to take the scroll from you, Dan, now. And you are going to open the ark once I do that. And Maia, you're going to read your Bat Mitzvah prayer, which is there waiting for you.
In the presence of this congregation, which represents the Jewish people all over the world, I give thanks for what I have learnt of my Jewish heritage and promise to go on studying it in the years ahead, so I may come to understand ever more deeply and carry out more fully the duties that flow from it. I think of all those who, in past stages, have preserved the Jewish faith and declared their loyalty to it, as I do today. I thank my parents and my family, my teachers and my friends, and all those who have helped me to reach this day. And I pray to God, guide me and keep me strong, so I may fulfill the high hopes that rest on me.
So, Maia, I think that your mother we're going to open the ark. Then you're going to go back to stand next to Dan. There's a little bit of choreography at this moment, and you are going to offer some words to mark this day of your bat mitzvah. Your mother's done very well, not audibly crying in the service thus far. I did notice a few tears, but now you're allowed.
Wow! Maia, we are so totally and utterly proud of you. Not just for how you've read this morning, but how you've approached this whole undertaking. You're incredible. You were so ready a year and a half ago to do this, and then COVID struck. Faced with a decision as to whether to go ahead on Zoom only or to postpone, you were very clear that what was most important to you was to be physically surrounded by those that love you. You've kept working with a quiet resolve throughout this chaotic and confusing year, keeping up with schoolwork and the mitzvah work in a really challenging time for everyone. Your determination, your resilience, and your good-humoured approach to your learning never wavered. Symbolically, this bar mitzvah represents you becoming a woman in our community. But in a very, very real sense, we have watched you blossom into a wonderful young person. You are thoughtful and caring to all those lucky enough to be around you. And you're so full of compassion to those that don't know you or that you don't know, as highlighted in your Devar Torah. You overflow with joy and enthusiasm, and it's infectious. You've held on to the ability to wonder at new things, and you always seek to see the best in people. You are a mensch in the best possible way. If we can echo the words of Thor's mother, whom Shira quoted earlier, from your mum and dad, you succeed in being who you are, Maia, and it's delightful.
Now you're allowed. Who knew the Marvel movies would be such an important part of a Shabbat morning service. I am forever changed. So I am now going to pass the Torah scroll to Dan, who will pass it to Maia. Shira, at your bat mitzvah, Maia will be able to be in that line of passing it to you. So Suzanne, I'm going to suggest that you stand next to Maia, just to help her, because this is a big one. And as we do so, we offer the Shehetianu blessing, the blessing so apt for us during COVID as we come out of it. The blessing where we offer thanks for having been kept alive, literally kept upright, to arrive at this moment.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, שהביאנו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, שהביאנו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה.
And a blessing for you, Maia, from us, your congregation. Misha berach avotenu Avraham, Yitzhak v'Yaakov v'imotenu Sarah, Rivka, Rachel v'Leah, hu yavarech et bat mitzvah Maia, bat Daniel v'Shoshana, she'alta l'Torah. May the one who blessed our ancestors Abraham, Isaac and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel and Leah, bless Maia, who having reached the age of bat mitzvah has come up to chant from the Torah, to illuminate its words, to translate it, and then to chant again from the prophet Jeremiah. May she continue to study our heritage, to take its teachings to heart, to pass it on to future generations. I believe you are the newest assistant teacher in Ivriya, so that she continues to be a source of pride to her family and friends and a worthy member of this, our community.
Simchat Tov, Mazal Tov, Mazal Tov, Simchat Tov, Simchat Tov, Mazal Tov, Mazal Tov, Simchat Tov, Simchat Tov, Mazal Tov, Mazal Tov, Simchat Tov.
Page 29, as we go to Aleinu, thinking of building a world that is better. Let's stay standing.
עלינו לשבח אדון הכל, לתת גדולה, זה בראשית, אשר שם ימינו ויגן את שמו, וקור עלינו להמליך מלכותו, אין עוד, אין עוד, אין עוד, אין עוד.
the eternal God shall rule over all the earth. On that day, the eternal God shall be one and known to be one. We turn now to Kaddish on page 32 in our Siddur, and to recalling and remembering yard sites that fall in our congregation this Shabbat. We think particularly of Sidney Allen, stepfather of Brenda Ross, of Leon Brady, uncle of Neil Rosenberg, of Margit and Geoffrey Goodman, parents of Karen Goodman, of Rose Goodman, mother of Karen Goodman, grandmother of Samuel and Toby Levy, of Minna Kramer, aunt of Josie Kinchin, of John Lesser, father of Sheila King-Lassman, and of Barry Simmons, husband of Rochelle Simmons. Zichronam livracha, may their memories be for a blessing, and may those who recall and remember their loved ones be comforted in their loss as we say the words of the Kaddish with them. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shamei rabbah, bi'amad divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayachon uv'yomechon, uv'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, magala v'zman kari v'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabbah mavorach le'olam omer Maia, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ah v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithada v'yitale v'talal shemed kodosha brichu, leila min kol berchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechemata, da'amiram bi'ama v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shamaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'al kol bnei Adam, v'imru amen. Let's sit down. So if we go to announcements before we close our service with Adon Olam.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Welcome to FPS. Whether you're joining us at home, on Zoom, or on Facebook, or in the sanctuary, our regulars, our occasional visitors, guests, first-timers, and of course a very particularly warm welcome to the friends and family of Maia who are joining us today to celebrate her bat mitzvah with us. And a very hearty mazel tov to you, Maia, of course, and to your proud parents, Dan and Susanna, and to your sister, Shira, and to all of your family. Thank you to everyone whose work makes it possible for us to meet together for these services, and especially today to our wonderful Hebrew teacher, John, and our B'nai Mitzvah coordinator, Josie. Maia, it's my great privilege to be the person who calls you up once more.
There, right in front of you.
It's right in front of me, yes. Who calls you up. First of all, I mean, what can I say? It's come up, come on up, come on up. Gosh, it's always such a moment of joy and pride for us as a community when one of our children who's grown up with us reaches this point and comes and leads the community in prayer. And I think anyone who heard you today, Maia, not only chanting that long portion, but also expounding so clearly and beautifully the ethos and the values that you share with this community, anyone who heard that will know that you are ready to lead us and to hold us to account for those values and to keep us laughing along the way. And we're so grateful for that, and I hope you'll continue to find in FPS a meaningful place to take action in the world for justice and equality. And it's my privilege to present you with this certificate. It says, I've given you a good thing, do not forsake it. And it records that today you, Maia Sophie Rosenberg, were called to the Torah in the presence of our community to become bat mitzvah, and it gives the date both in English and in Hebrew and your portion for today. So congratulations. And we'll also be making a contribution to Israel Tour when you come to go on Israel Tour on behalf of the community. So thank you, Maia, and I really hope this really is the last thing you have to do formally today. So I hope now it's all celebration, and I think, you know, I can't find a better way of expressing how I'm sure we all feel than what your mum said. Wow. Wow, Maia. Thank you. Thank you. So you can go and sit down now. We've only got a small number of community announcements today because we're coming up for the new year. So our regular activities continue as usual. You can find those on our weekly email if you need to know what's going on. I did want to call attention to a couple of specific events and activities, and I hope, Maia, that you'll see in this your community living the values that you have been spelling out for us today. So tomorrow, on the eve of the new year, we have a day of community makers training here in the synagogue. So in the morning we have racial justice training for our welcome and security volunteers, and in the afternoon we have safeguarding training for our Ivrea teachers, staff and council. So that's just a reminder to everyone, because I know it's a busy time, but that training day is tomorrow. And then I also wanted to say, I know that lots of our members are really keen to know what the synagogue will be doing in relation to the Afghan refugee crisis, and I want to assure you that we continue to play a very leading role in the Barnet Refugee Welcome Board, that we are liaising with other agencies and with Barnet Council, that we have a specific appeal that we will be putting out on Facebook shortly, particularly for back-to-school supplies for some of the children who've recently arrived. But you can imagine it's a very quickly changing situation. We want to be really clear about what we're asking for and when, so look out for those announcements on Facebook. Otherwise, we look forward, of course, to welcoming our community to services on Erev Rosh Hashanah on Monday at 6:30, and on Tuesday our family Rosh Hashanah service is at 10, and the traditional service will be at 11:30. So it only remains for me to say again, Mazel Tov, congratulations, thank you for making us all very proud today, Maia. Shabbat Shalom, everyone, and Shana Tova.
Thank you, Tamara. So nice to have you back after the summer. Adon Olam is how we're finishing our service this morning, page 33.
Adon Olam, Hashem Alai, B'terem kol Yitzir nivra Et nasa V'chitzo kol Azai melech Shemo nikra Ve'akarei Tiklot hakol Levado נעשה וחפצו כל הזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי כתלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה אדון עולם השם מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא נהיית נעשה וחפצו כל הזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי כתלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה בתפארה והוא היה והוא הווה בתפארה והוא אחד ואין שני לעם שלו להכבירה בלי ראשית בלי תכלית ולא העוז והמשרה הוא אלי וחי מועלי וצוחב לי בעת צרה והוא ניסי ומנוס לי מנת כוסי ביום אקרא אדון עולם השם נשא וחפצו כל הזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה דון עולם אשר מלך בקרן כל יציר נברא את נשא וחפצו כל הזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה בתפארה והוא היה והוא הווה בתפארה בידו הפקיד רוחי בעת אישן בעירה ועם רוחי גביעתי אדוני לי ולא יירא אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא את נשא וחפצו כל הזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה דון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא את נשא וחפצו כל הזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה בתפארה והוא היה והוא הווה בתפארה והוא היה והוא הווה בתפארה והוא היה והוא הווה בתפארה.
Yesher koach. So, a tiny blessing for all of us as we go out into our new beginnings, whether it be Rosh Hashanah and the new year, returning to school, and the academic year. So this blessing also from Deuteronomy. Baruch atah b'voecha u'baruch atah b'tzetecha. Blessed may you be when you come in, and blessed may you be when you go out. So now I believe you all have little kiddush boxes under your chair that Maia and Shira have been filling all week. So I think there's challah there's a bagel if you got terribly hungry during the service. So we're going to ask you to stay in your seats and we are going to say our kiddush. So please stand but stay in your seats. And then just a reminder that after you have eaten, just taken a bite and a drink, we are going to ask you not to resist the temptation to hug each other, to mark this wonderful moment, but just keep going right out of the door. And so no rudeness intended. Do all your celebratory hugging in our rose garden at the front of the synagogue.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם בורא פרי הגפן. Amen. L'chaim.
L'chaim. And whatever you have in your box that you are choosing to make your kiddush over right now, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Amen.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.